Hi, I'm Chef Jay Rathmann from BJ's Nevada Barbecue Company, and I'm the executive chef and owner. Today, we are working with the Nevada Dairy and our dairy farmers and Dairy Council, and we're here to do some demo on biscuits and gravy. We're going to make some fresh buttermilk biscuits. We're also going to make a nice country gravy. Nice little get for a breakfast, or you can do them for an evening dinner. Nice way of incorporating some of that. So I guess let's get started. We got a bunch of nice products. We use whole milk in our country gravy. We'll also be using buttermilk in our biscuits. To get started, very simple recipes. Flour, all-purpose. We'll also have 2 tablespoons of calumet, baking powder, tablespoon of kosher salt. You can use iodized. We prefer kosher. It's just your preference. Tablespoon of sugar. Teaspoon and a half of baking soda. And of course, you got to have butter. So we have fresh salted butter in our product. We're also going to use lard. So we use a two-fat process on that. So butter and lard. We're going to cut those in. Both fats need to be nice and cold when you're doing it. We'll also have some extra flour for when we're rolling it out, kneading it, and all that. So let's get started. A couple things you're going to need to do all this stuff, and I'm going to do the biscuits first because they're going to have to bake, and then we'll start on the gravy, country gravy, and when we're done with that. Probably something you saw in your mom's cupboard or your grandmother's cupboard and just played with and never really used it or knew what it was for. It's a sifter. So we're going to sift the flour, get the ingredients in there. The other thing is you can use your hands or you can use a cutter. This will help. There's another thing you might have saw in your grandmother's kit or she might have used. It's for help cutting in the fat into the flour. So that's easy enough. We'll get started on that. All the dry ingredients go in at one time. That's part of that sifting process. We basically bake biscuits every morning fresh. So all of our cooks or our prep cooks or even myself get in there in the morning, and it's the same process every morning for us. We just use larger batches. I cut this down so that it's makes about 12 to 15 biscuits. When you're all done, sometimes there's a little salt left, it goes right back in. But all these are done fresh every morning. The other thing you're going to need is a biscuit cutter. When we're ready to cut, we're going to do that. So that's done. Drop our butter in. And this is a quarter pound, so this would be 1 stick of butter. You can use salted, you can use non-salted. You just got to accommodate that for the salt content in your recipe. Next, we got our lard. It's kind of more traditional, and that was what we really wanted to do when we opened this restaurant. We wanted to get a lot back to the basics. We didn't want what everybody else had. We were trying to do basically food that your parents ate, your grandparents ate, your grandparents ate. Going back to, you'll see when we get to the gravy, bacon fat. So, your grandmother always used to have a little jar next to the oven. Put a little dab or put a tablespoon in there. We go back to those principles. So a lot of what we do is very simple cooking with basic elements of food. So what I'll do is I'm going to cut the fat in and get that working in there. Sometimes you can use your hands. I like doing both. You can get your hands in there and knead it together. What you're trying to do when you're doing this, and it'll take a couple minutes, I'll switch over to my hands here shortly. I just want to get that fat broke up a little more and get it kneaded in. And then what we'll do at the very end, we just drop the buttermilk in, and it goes right onto our board. And the board that I'm using, it's actually a board that I built for us. It's our biscuit board. So what it does is it makes all the biscuits the same height. So when you're rolling it out, you're looking for something about a 1/2 inch tall. Very simple. If you don't know that, you can kind of cheat, use paint sticks or get a couple sticks, cut them down to a 1/2 inch, use it as a guide so that every biscuit's the same, or if you're really good, you just roll them out at 1/2 inch. So, but it was funny because I was actually kind of really excited when I got the phone call from the Dairy Council, because when I grew up in Western New York, so what I used to do is I used to actually work for a farmer, a dairy farmer, in the summers when school was out. So I would work on a dairy farm, milking cows, baling hay, picking rocks, baling. I mean, you named it, we did it. It was a farm. Really great farmer, Kyle Glosser. Very nice gentleman. But yeah, I spent a lot of mornings, early mornings, waking up at 4 a.m. and milking cows. And back then it was a little different. I mean, you could go, the milk came straight from the vat. So it would go from the cow into the lines, into a huge vat where then they would pull it away, or the tanker trucks would come, pick it up and pull it away. Well, we'd get it right out of the vat. So it was a little different. We would get chunks of butter fat, or butter, cream in our Cheerios. So we'd be eating it and there'd be a little lump of cream. And I mean, it was like pure milk, like almost straight from the cow. It was really cool. Definitely experience I won't ever forget. So this is coming together nice. So I'm going to stop that. I'm going to get my hands in here. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of like pulling it and squeezing it, trying to get that fat incorporated in. I don't want to really push it all in. I don't want it to just be blended in. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking for it to make a compaction. So when I pull it in my fist, right there. Okay, so that's done. It didn't take much, just a little. But what I'm looking for is, I'm looking like if I squeeze it and it makes a form. It forms to my hand, and it's actually fairly solid when you touch it, but it crumbles. So that's what I was looking for. If you go too far, it makes the biscuits hard. That's not what we want. So now, it's kind of a little messy part, but it's fine. We're going to take 2 cups of buttermilk. And I love buttermilk. Buttermilk helps with leavening. It's the acidity in the buttermilk that brings the biscuits to life. It gives it the air. It brings them nice and fluffy. And it makes a fantastic biscuit. You can use milk. That's not saying that you can't. I just found, and we have found, that if you really truly want a good buttermilk biscuit, obviously buttermilk is the way to go. So I'm going to mix it by hand. And we do a lot of this when we're making larger batches, obviously in the mornings. We do it in a machine, and it helps us do all this because we're making hundreds of biscuits, not 10 or 15 like we are right now. So what we're trying to do is, it'll be a little wet, which is fine. And you're just going to mix it around till all the dry ingredients are mixed into the biscuits, and it's dry off the bowl, meaning everything is coming off the bottom of the bowl. So at that point, you don't want to really overmix it because we're going to need it now. So we're going to take some flour our board. Just move it around a little. You can do it. You're going to do this on your table probably, or at home. Take all that buttermilk biscuit mix. It's right there. Pull it out. Organize as we go. And now the fun part. So, flour our hands. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of move it around. and we're going to start pulling it over on itself. Obviously, you can get your fingers cleaned off. And we're just going to start pushing. Not pushing hard. We don't want it to be overworked. You know, we're not making bread. We're not really doing that. What we want is we want a really nice, light biscuit. And the trick is only flour what you need to flour if it starts sticking. So if the biscuit starts sticking to your table or your board, just like right there, put a little more flour underneath it. But you want to use as little amount of flour you can when you're doing this process. Otherwise, it'll make the biscuits tough. And we need about 7 to 8 times. So we're rolling it over, just giving a little. And then this is the 8th time right here. We pull that over, and you can see it kind of springs back a little. See how it just comes back just enough? That's all we need. So now we're going to roll out. Put a little more flour down so we don't have it stick. Put a little flour here and flour our rolling pin. Slide this over. And we just pat and roll it down. And the board, obviously you can tell the board makes it easy for us because it makes them perfectly all the same size. Okay. That's it. I mean, it's easy to roll it out. Now, just flour your pan. Take your biscuit cutter and always just push. And if you get to the bottom, you can give it a little twist. You can use any size. You can use the back of a cup. So after we kneaded our biscuit mix 8 times, we took the time, we rolled it back out. And obviously you can see with this board, because it has the sides, it gives us an even biscuit. And that's what we're trying to accomplish at the restaurant, obviously. What you're doing is you're going to take your biscuit cutter, dip it in a little bit of flour, and it'll help go through your biscuit. Just take and push straight down. And when you get to the bottom, you can give it a little jiggle, but that's it. What you don't want is you don't want to twist, because what that does is that doesn't allow the biscuit to raise straight up. It twists the biscuit dough a little, and it's not good for a nice high biscuit. So we just push straight down and put them on the sheet pan. Make sure that the sheet pan is floured just lightly. You don't need a lot of flour. And the biscuits, if you did them properly, they should be nice and soft, like really soft, like almost just not really hard. They're just nice and soft in your hand. We're going to put these in. These are going to go in an oven at 3 1/4 for about 18 minutes. You can do it higher. You can do 400. It's just going to take a little less time. But we're going to do this. Get these done and get them in. And none of this is waste. So basically, when you're ready to do your next one, you're just going to come back, fold it a couple times, put it back in, and if you need more flour, just put a little flour on the board, flip it, and re-roll it back out. Very simple. Doesn't need much. Flour our pan again. And you're going to repeat this process basically until you're out of dough. And very simple, very simple. Sometimes you get to the end, you got a little piece. It's what we would call done. You're not going to get any more out of it. I'm going to put these in the oven, and then we're going to start on our gravy. Sometimes I think the new ovens are smarter than us. They tell us everything they need to do and how we load them in and how much temperature goes and how much humidity it has to have and all that good stuff. So we're done with that. I'm going to straighten this up quick, wash my hands, and then we will start on the gravy. It's always nice to have a nice clean work area when we're working. Again, we use a lot of products. Most of the milk, basically all of our milk is model dairy locally in Reno. Fantastic. Obviously, we've been using them as long as we've been in business, but I can never thank them enough. They're just great people down there. Great everything. So this one, what we're going to need is we're going to need a small pan, or you can use a frying pan if you need. We're going to make a roux. And then we're going to need another saucepan. Pardon me. There we go. Told you, the ovens are smarter than us, I think. And then I'm going to have 2 whisks, one for my roux. You can use the same one. I just think this little whisk is going to be easier in a small pan. This will be easier in a big one. Most people, this is where they lose it on making the country gravy. It's very simple, but you have to have two components, basically the roux and the milk. Both need to be warm. So we're going to get the milk started. We're going to bring that up to temperature. It needs to be about 175 degrees to put the roux into to actually make it nice and thick. If you try doing the hot and cold method, it balls, the roux will ball up. Doesn't work as well. We just found that running the milk and put it in a warm roux works better. So we're going to start with a half a gallon of milk. May seem like a lot, but it's really not, because you're going to make this for 4 to 5 people. You're going to go through a lot of gravy. Plus, you can save it. You can have it the next morning. It's fantastic. Heat it up. Just cool it right down. Do the same thing. So we're going to get that in our pot. Start there. Get our pot going on medium low. Not too hot. We don't want to scald the milk. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start our roux. So our roux, like I said, bacon fat. And on this is about almost a 1/4 cup of bacon fat. This is back to where your grandparents, what they were eating, and your great-grandparents. Not a lot of people cook with bacon fat. We use it all the time. That's one of our big things in the restaurant. Butter, fresh butter, salted or unsalted, does not matter. So what we're going to do with that, we're going to get this on the stove and warm this up. And what I like to do with my roux is what we want to do is we want to call this a white roux. I like calling them platinum roux. So it will have no cook time. So basically we're going to cook the butter, cook the bacon fat. We're going to get that hot, and then we're going to drop the flour right into it. Once we drop the flour in, we're going to stir it. Done. Just hold it to the side until you're ready to actually add it to your milk. So there's no more cooking other than that. That produces a nice white gravy. If you want a little darker, you can cook it a little more and go a blonde roux. But just remember that it's equal parts. So if we have a 1/4 cup and a 1/4 cup, we're going to need a 1/2 cup of flour. So 1-to-1 ratio on your roux. Much better. So we're waiting for this to melt. We're waiting for this to heat up. I do have some butter on the back burner that we're going to use to butter our biscuits when they come out of the oven. One thing I will say is stir your milk as you're going. Don't let it just sit there and kind of cook. because you might scald it, you might char on the bottom, you might get a little stick. You don't want that. You just want a nice even temperature on your milk. So what I like to say is when you put when the fat is hot for your roux and you drop the butter in, it will kind of foam a little, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that foam. Doesn't take long. The biscuits, by the time we get this done, the biscuits should be coming out, and maybe we'll do a piece of some eggs and some bacon, and you got a great breakfast. So, but while we got a moment, well, we can talk about the restaurant. So we're at BJ's Barbecue. We're on 80 East Victorian Avenue. We've been in business 35 years, so it's a family business. My parents still own it, and I work for them pretty much as an owner, but I work with them. And I'm also the executive chef. We've been in the building that we're in now for about 11 years now. And one of the big things we did say, like I mentioned before, is we wanted to get back to the roots. We wanted to get back to where food was. We didn't want what everybody else had. We wanted ours. So when it comes to the gravy, it's our recipes. Everything that we serve here is ours, and it's our recipes. It's made in-house. 99.5% of what we do here is all made just like this, except we make it in larger kettles. I shortened this down a little just to get it done for this recipe, so you guys weren't making 35 gallons of it like we do. But we pride ourselves on using a lot of ingredients and repurposing, meaning that the bacon that we're using, when we take the bacon out of the ovens, the bacon that is rendered out, the bacon fat, we save all that. That's what we're using to make our roux and make other things in the kitchen, a lot of things. Right now, our oil's hot. It's kind of easy to tell. It's bubbling. Can you see that? I hope you can. And that's ready to go. We're going to put that in. We're just going to drop the flour right in it and stir it, and it's going to come right off the heat. Once it goes in, foams up a little, starts to get thick. Make sure it's incorporated so you don't have any lumps. So you want to make sure that the lumps are out of it. And that's it. Turn the heat off. You can either leave it on the stove, you can pull it off and set it over here. It's fine either way. Keep stirring our milk so we can get that up to temperature. And what's going to happen is with that roux, the flour is going to activate and the glutens are going to activate, and that's going to be your binding power. That's what's going to give you that nice smooth texture to your gravy, not grainy. You let that sit and you let that work, you'll have a nice smooth gravy. You won't taste the flour, or what we say, you won't feel the flour on your palate. That's what we're trying to cook out. So once this milk starts coming up to temperature, we're going to start adding some other components. And what we have is some white pepper. White pepper is what's going to give you the pepper flavor, and that's what you're looking for. I have some black pepper. It's going to add flavor, but it's also going to give you the aesthetics of, you're going to look at that pepper and you're going to notice peppers in the gravy. So white pepper won't do that, but you don't want to just you can put all black pepper or all white pepper, but it just, for us, it's aesthetics, and then it's also flavor. We also have some garlic powder, 1 teaspoon. So let me say this. So you have a teaspoon of garlic powder, teaspoon of white pepper, a teaspoon of black pepper, and then you're going to have a tablespoon of kosher salt. This is a 1/4 cup of diced white onions, small. And I just like the white onions in there. It gives it a little texture, and obviously you're getting a little more vegetable flavor. You're going to get that onion flavor out of it. Next thing we did is we have bacon. This is cooked, and what we did is we cooked and chopped it or ground it. You can do whatever you want. Cook some bacon off. If you've got bacon left over from yesterday's breakfast, perfect way to reuse it. Same thing with sausage. So this is our breakfast sausage. We cook it off. It's all ground up, and then what we do is we just chop it up, and that gives you that nice particulate for that gravy. So when you're looking at a nice country gravy, you're always looking at those big chunks of sausage or the bacon, or you can just do bacon, or you can do sausage, or you can do both. We do both. Very nice way of making making the biscuits and the gravy stand out more on the plate, mainly if you're only going to have a couple biscuits and gravy. I mean, it's a meal in itself, I personally think. If they could just make you skinny, we'd be all a lot better off with it. So those will be going in shortly, as soon as I can get my milk to where I think we're going to add our onion and our spices. So right now, if you look, if you can see, the milk is just starting to steam a little. That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to add our onion. Okay. And then I'm going to add the rest of our seasonings. And those are going to help pull some of the flavors out of that product into the milk. And our pepper. Oh, that's looking good. Looking great. One thing I could have mentioned and I didn't when we were doing the biscuits. So that same biscuit recipe is a fantastic scone recipe. So if you want to make scones at home and you kind of like, well, it seems hard, it's the same as making a biscuit. So if you took the same biscuit recipe, and they'll be posting it on their site, on the Dairy Council site, this will all be up there. You just add a quarter cup of sugar. A quarter cup of sugar in that will make a scone. You add it in with the flour. And then it's the same process, buttermilk, bake it the same. You can make triangles, you can make icing. Another fantastic recipe and another use for some fantastic buttermilk. All right, we're getting there. I'm going to turn this down just a little. We're going to let that sit just for a second. And then we're going to add the roux. I want to make sure those onions kind of sweat down, get a little soft, and get all that pepper, get all that flavor to just bloom inside that milk. Best way of going about it. If you kind of rush all the steps, it's not the same product. So at this point, our roux should be nice. It's kind of little thick, kind of like pancake batter. You could say it's a little heavy, but not too much. And we're going to take that, we're going to incorporate that right into this milk. And as soon as that hits that hot liquid, it's going to instantly start thickening up. You have to stir. Keep continually stirring. If you don't, what's going to happen is you might get a lump of roux or anything like that. You just want to keep stirring it, and that's where the real technique is to this. It's not complicated. It's just taking the moment to finish it and go that full little step, making sure that everything is nice and complete. As soon as that's done, then we're going to drop all of our cooked in. So you can see the roux. Drop that roux in. You can already smell the bacon because of the roux. It was already in there. And we're going to get this to thicken up. And if you find that it's not getting thick, it's easy. You can just add a little more butter, make a little more flour, and put a little in there. If you don't have flour and butter, not a problem. Again, if you have to tighten it up a little, you can use cornstarch. But really, the roux is the best way of going about it. And this is where you want to watch, because once you add the flour to the milk, now you're going to have that variable of scorching on the bottom of the pan. So this is where you want to continually just keep stirring it. Take your time. You can bring it up. It can come up to a boil or a light boil. And it's just starting to thicken up. It's looking good. And you'll be able to tell. It'll start getting nice and thick, and you're just doing that. Keep it stirring. Otherwise, yeah, you just don't want it to stick to the bottom of the pan. So while that's doing that, I'm going to add the rest of the bacon pieces and the sausage. And obviously, because you have to re-thermalize, you're basically reheating your bacon and your sausage, you need to make sure that your product or your gravy comes up to 165 degrees so you can fully cook. It's already cooked, but you're re-thermalizing it. So the only really concern that you have is the bacon and the sausage. Once those come back up to temperature, you're fine. And normally what we say is we let it cook for about 5 to 8 minutes after this on just a simmer. Holds it over, lets everything do its come together. It's a fantastic way of doing it. It's fantastic food. So, let's see what we have left on our biscuits. 3 minutes. Oh, those look great. Wash our hands again. I'll straighten up from what we got. Oh. Fantastic. Oh, slide this there. And just keep stirring. Really simple. So, you know, it's funny, and a lot of people think when they think barbecue, the first thing they don't think of is breakfast. And that was one thing we really wanted to change in our city in Sparks. Breakfast is one of those things we always wanted to do. And sometimes, for us, it was moving to this location, so we had a big enough kitchen to do it. Again, it was all about that. Oop, I broke my yoke. But being able to bring a lot of the old foods back in, not even just this, just a multitude of other things. Corned beef hash, we do all of our pancakes from scratch, French toast, all those things are included in our dairy. I mean, we make all those nice custards. We do our ice cream we make from scratch. So we do all that stuff in-house, and that's what we wanted to set us apart from the rest of the restaurants in town, not only in Sparks, but in Reno. And I think we made a really good niche for that, doing that. And we have a fantastic breakfast. We enjoy it. And obviously, we're very well known for it in Sparks. Again, when people come here, that's the first thing they notice. It's not the same as it is everywhere. We wanted this gravy, to be the showcase for a lot of what we're doing. And it is. I mean, it's just not biscuits and gravy. It's chicken fried steak. Biscuits are done. Oh, perfect. And I got the other ones in there. So I know these look, and these I already know they look great. What we want to do is when we get to the center of the pan, want to pull one of the center biscuits and make sure they're done in the middle. So if you don't see like a white doughy in the middle, then they're done. So this is perfect. The other thing I like to notice is I call them freckles. So if you look at the top of the biscuit, it almost looks like there's little freckles on them. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're looking for that freckle, and we're looking for the golden color. And then what we'll do is we're going to come back and we're going to butter the top of these and finish them off. Because that butter is going to just make everything better. Butter should be a food group in my eyes. So we got some melted butter. We're going to go and we're just going to put it right on top. Let it soak in. And this is just regular salted butter. You know, everything's right there. Yeah, we make hundreds of biscuits a day, and it's just, it never gets old for me because I still sit and just grab one and eat one with just the way it is, just like that. All right, our timing's good because our gravy is right there. We're going to let that go for a second. Not cheap. I got some bacon I par cooked right before we started. I'll drop that in. Here's the other biscuits we had. We're going to let that go for a minute. Obviously, you can tell the difference. When they raise, it's a big biscuit. I mean, that's a big biscuit. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that nice big biscuit, light, airy. Just, it's not dense. They're just so good to eat, just the way they are. I love them when they come out of the oven. It's one of my favorite parts of the morning. Let's set those to the side. So, what we can do is grab our biscuits. You can do this a couple ways. If you want, we do it here at the restaurant. We just take our plates. You can just take your biscuit, pull it in half, and shingle it. Just so it's like that. Very simple. Oh, let me grab a ladle. And now our gravy's done. It smells fantastic. Again, you're going to be looking at all of the specs. You want the pepper, you want the sausage, you want the bacon, you want, excuse me, all of that incorporated in. So when it's going onto that biscuit, you can see all of that. It's just nice, clean, and it's gorgeous white, all done. Nice big pieces of sausage standing out. Just not just gravy by itself. You know, for me, this is a meal in itself. Clean up. There we are. Biscuits and gravy, BJ's way. And that's how we like to do it, just like that. Fantastic way of going about it. It's a meal in itself. We sell hundreds of these things a week. We'll also do it with, again, eggs and bacon. Another fantastic way of doing it. Grab a plate and we'll do that too. Perfect. Over easy egg. Over medium, probably. Some of our house peppered bacon. Again, another great breakfast. Another great thing. You look at the biscuits. Fantastic. As simple as it comes. Well, I'd like to thank the Dairy Council and the dairy farmers of Northern Nevada, period, all over the world for being able to put this product on our plates, give us the ability to have all these fantastic products. Milk, milk, butter, you name it, whipping cream. We use it all. I mean, this is a scratch kitchen, so these base ingredients are literally our lifeblood in this restaurant. And without that, we wouldn't have these fantastic products that we put out on a daily basis. Thank you all. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be on this.